Welcome to the Takeoff and Basic Handling training flight. Today, you're taking the A-10C up for a spin. In this lesson, we'll perform a standard takeoff followed by some basic maneuvers at medium altitude. Press the spacebar key when you are ready to begin. Things will happen rather quickly once you begin to roll, so let's review the takeoff sequence. After a final check of the instruments, you'll begin to roll at max engine power. Your main focus will be on using nose wheel steering to maintain the aircraft on runway center during the roll. Once the rudders become effective above 50 knots, you will disengage nose wheel steering. At 120 knots, begin to raise the nose by gently pulling back on the stick and setting a pitch angle of 10 degrees on the ADI. This will be a safety critical element of takeoff. Pulling up too fast can lead to striking the aircraft's tail on the runway or lifting off with too much angle of attack, leading to a stall and possible crash. Once the aircraft is safely airborne and climbing, raise the landing gear and flaps. Accelerate to 180 knots and maintain the speed in the climb to altitude. Prior to starting the takeoff roll, a number of final checks are performed to ensure the aircraft's safe operation. Ensure the anti-skid switch is set to on. If not already done, turn on pitot tube heating on the environmental control panel. Now hold down the wheel brakes by pressing and holding the W key and increase throttle to 85% core RPM. Monitor your flight and engine instruments for any abnormalities. Look around the cockpit and check the caution lights panel to ensure no malfunctions are reported. Press the spacebar key to proceed once everything checks out. You are now ready for takeoff. Take a note of your current heading as you will maintain this after takeoff. To begin the roll, release the wheel brakes and advance the throttles to max. Use careful nose wheel steering commands to keep the aircraft running straight down the center of the runway. Press the Hold Task pinky button or insert to disable nose wheel steering. Gently pull back on the stick to raise the nose to 10 degrees pitch on the ADI and hold it. Maintain 10 degrees of pitch. Raise the landing gear by pressing G and the flaps by pressing left shift plus F. The landing gear horn will sound while the landing gear is in transition. Adjust your pitch angle to maintain 180 knots indicated airspeed in the climb, and check the vertical velocity indicator to monitor your rate of climb. Your desired rate of climb will depend on a number of factors, including the aircraft weight, range, and altitude of the steer point. However, 180 knots indicated airspeed is a good average climb speed. Maintain a heading of 300 degrees and 180 knots. Level out at 5,000 feet. Scan your instruments vertically from the HUD down to the ADI and HSI, and then horizontally across the front dash from the airspeed indicator to the altimeter and vertical velocity indicator. Approaching 5,000 feet, let's level out here. We'll pick up some airspeed and max engine power. Flying over water can be disorienting, so let's turn inland. Turn right to 040. Let's talk a bit about airspeed. While you may want to fly at maximum speed to get where you're going as fast as possible, you have to keep in mind fuel consumption and designated times of arrival. As such, you will generally fly at speeds less than maximum and preferably close to your cruise speed, which is the most efficient speed for your current aircraft payload and altitude. Let's try to decelerate. There are a number of ways you can reduce airspeed, including reducing engine RPM, opening the speed brakes, and pitching the nose up to climb. For now, let's simply reduce engine power. Pull the throttles back and watch the airspeed indications on the HUD and front dash begin to decrease. Good. Now let's accelerate by advancing the throttles back to max. Now let's perform a climb. Take the nose up to 20 degrees of pitch by referencing the ADI on the front dash. Climb to 12,000 feet. Watch the altitude and airspeed readings on the HUD and instrument panel. Take note of the altitude increasing and airspeed decreasing. Check the VVI to monitor your rate of climb. It's critical to maintain control of your airspeed or you will quickly approach a stall scenario. If your airspeed begins to fall below 160 knots, reduce your climb rate by lowering the nose to a smaller pitch angle. The A-10 does not have a very high thrust-to-weight ratio, so cannot zoom climb like fighter jets. However, what the Hawk lacks in engine power, it makes up for in engine durability and endurance. Level out at 12,000 feet. The A-10 service ceiling is 45,000 feet. However, given the nature of the A-10 design and function, you are likely to spend most of your time in altitudes below 25,000 feet. The next maneuver will be a dive. Before we begin, keep in mind a couple of things. Although we are 12,000 feet above sea level, the surface of the Earth can be a lot closer, so we'll only drop about 5,000 feet and recover at 7,000. Also, our speed will increase rapidly in the dive and we need to be careful not to overspeed the aircraft. Overspeeding is highly dangerous and can lead to catastrophic structural failure. Pull the throttle back and push the stick forward to make your pitch 20 degrees nose down. Watch your altitude decrease and speed increase as you dive. Recover at 7,000 feet. Coming up on 7,000 feet, level out. For our last maneuver of the day, we'll try a level turn. Turning is not difficult, but turning well does require attentiveness and coordination. The goal of a level turn is to complete the maneuver with minimal deviation in speed and altitude from your initial conditions. A level turn will consist of initial roll input on the stick, followed by a slight pull and rudder input into the turn to maintain altitude and minimize side slip as indicated by the slip ball on the ADI. However, too much input on either the stick or rudder will quickly increase drag and angle of attack, leading to a drastic loss of speed and potential loss of control. We'll perform a 360-degree left turn from a heading of 040 at 7,000 feet and 280 knots. Go ahead and set the jet to these initial conditions. Set. Stabilize at this speed and altitude before starting the turn. Remember, try to maintain the airspeed and altitude throughout the turn. Use the total velocity vector on the HUD to maintain altitude, and step on the ADI ball using the rudder to minimize side slip. Begin when ready. You deviated too far from the starting conditions. Stabilize again on a heading of 040 at 7,000 feet and 280 knots for another try. Set. Begin when ready. Well done. We will end our training flight here.